I know George Clooney is still being seen as one of the most handsome guys in the world, but he better watch out. He's getting that old man sag in his pants now.
Why are you looking at George Clooney's pants?
George Clooney, man.
Why are you worried about? Why are you worried about George Clooney? Are you that guy who's waiting for George Clooney to fuck up?
Yes.
So you can go. All right, that Playboy image it's all bullshit. He's old now.
That's me.
Who
Yes.
gives a fuck?
Corey Coleman is the new king.
Because you know I'm next in line.
It's a comparison. He's like, wait a minute, I'm Corey Cole. I'm charming. I'm debonair.
And you know,
let's see if my dick is bigger.
Yeah. And my sag is twice as saggy. So. But no, you know, in this movie, that's what I like about George Clooney, man. George Clooney, granted, yes, as jealous as I am of him, he has to work at ugling himself up, but he does try. And in this movie, he does try to be that average guy. It's not about him being handsome. It's not about him being charismatic. He's a kind of an average Joe with as many problems as you got, if not more.
That's right.
And I like that.
Especially in this.
Ooh, yeah, boy, does he have problems.
Yeah,
in
it
this.
is. You think of like, oh, it's smooth George Clooney. He's Danny Ocean. He's always got a plan. He's got some buddies to back him up. No, it's just him and his two daughters and his fucking bitch wife who's in a coma.
Oh, I know, man.
And it's hard to call someone a bitch when they're in a coma, but
And yet,
at this time you go like, yeah.
This
I'd
movie
say it.
makes you believe it.
and yet he's still got a little bit of that Danny Ocean. I mean, the guy's like really rich. He's in charge of handling this huge amount of, like, multi-million-dollar settlement his family's going to get for a parcel of land, right?
Yeah.
He lives in fucking paradise.
Yeah, in Hawaii, true.
You know,
And he's a lawyer there.
Yeah, he's a lawyer there. His life isn't all bad. In fact, he thinks his life is pretty good, all things considered.
Wah.
Until other shit. starts down.
Things
Life's
were going.
got other stuff planned.
I tell you what, things were going good until Alexander Payne got a hold of that ass. I mean, that guy's last name is not Payne for no reason.
Right.
Alexander Payne, he did movies like About Schmidt. He did
Election. Citizen Ruth.
Yeah.
Sideways.
Sideways.
Yeah,
And
he's absolutely one of my absolute favorite
And
directors.
I love this director, man, and he's also the writer of most of his movies too, if not all of them. I know he's one of the co-writers on this film also, as well as being the director. But in an Alexander Payne movie, he always presents something as either like somebody is delusional and they're telling their story, but we see it being played out in reality.
And that's what I love about his
This
movies.
person thinks that they're telling their story like where they're the hero, but really, no. Reality says different. Or he has a way of presenting like a tragedy or some heartbreak and making you feel one way. And as the movie plays along, he tests you by having to say, well, what if that heartbreak was combined with a little bit of assholishness? How would you feel about that person then?
They all deal with really powerful emotions, but they're never simple at all. They're always really complicated, and the emotions that you feel in these situations evolve as the movie go along.
Your sympathy is quickly turned to anger, and you have to then confront this emotion of, should I feel guilty for that?
Right.
And I think the guy's amazing for that. All of his movies I have loved, and this one is no different. I have problems with this one, but I love it. And you're right, George Clooney in this movie, he plays Matt King, and you're right about him. He's a rich land baron. I mean, his name is appropriately named King because he is the king of a lot of land. He has so much land and so much money wrapped up in it that his family is on his ass to sell, all these cousins and uncles, and he doesn't want to sell this bit of paradise because all they'll just take it and turn it into a golf course or a strip mall and all that.
They'll pave it and put up a parking lot.
Well, there's a legal situation involved as well that I was never quite clear on.
Yeah, there's a legal thing where his family has owned this land for all these years, but they're coming to a point where they can't just own it outright.
Right.
They have to sell it or somehow pool the money and buy it.
Yeah.
It has something to do with one of his relatives being married to a native Hawaiian or something like that.
Something
something
like that.
and he's the only one that can sign
It's
off.
a complicated situation, but either way, it seems like the easiest path is going to be to sell it, and that's what the whole family
And
wants
all
to
that
do,
is
pretty
trivial
much.
to him at the moment because he's just suffered the tragedy of his wife dying in a tragic skiing accident,
she's in a
water
coma.
skiing accident.
Yeah, she's in a coma.
She's on. She's basically brain dead, and they're about to have to make this decision of whether they're going to pull the plug on her or not. And I mean, everybody is so hurt and crying, and they're going to miss their wife, they're going to miss their mom, and
Not so much though.
but all of a sudden,
so much.
all of a sudden,
daughter
that's
comes
where
in.
everybody's feeling. But all of a sudden, dark secrets are revealed. The plot thickens, and George Clooney, Matt King, he has to look at this, and it's pretty much like, what the fuck? And he has to look at his wife and say, I could slap the fuck out of you right now if you weren't in a coma. Oh, what am I supposed to
the
do?
movie turns into.
But that means not only can she not hit him back, but she can't duck when he
Yeah.
hits
It seems to me
She
like
can't tell anybody.
it would be easier, you know?
Yeah,
You're like,
exactly.
fuck, if I actually hit her in real life, that'd be complicated and messy, but shit, she ain't gonna.
You talk about abusing your wife when she's in a coma. That just ain't right.
What further complicates this is that they have two daughters, and one is a tween, and one is a teenager who's, she's at that age where she's kind of wild and giving them problems, and her and the mom weren't getting along to begin with. But
Yeah, Alexandra and Scotty. Scotty's the younger kid, and Alexandra is the teenager.
right, and him being a lawyer, somebody who works a lot, he hasn't been there to really be all that hands on with them. So now with his wife in a coma, he has to come in, step up and be like that alpha parent.
But not only that, it's also just because of circumstances, he learns about these dark secrets in a way that he has to involve his children. So now he has to gather them up and put them on this journey to confront just a very harsh reality.
Something I would say to you and everybody here, the dark secret that we avoid saying, it's in every commercial they play on
It
TV.
is.
Oh, it is?
It's
Yeah.
one of the things they say outright.
Yeah,
So.
it makes me mad that they do that, but they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, it does. I'm still don't even want to say in case anybody hasn't missed the trailer because
That would be me. I haven't seen the trailer.
well,
Even though I saw the
you saw the
movie.
movie, yeah.
I saw
See,
the movie,
and
but
that's
I
what,
didn't see the
and I think people, if you don't know, I know they're putting it out there and they're not trying to keep it that much of a secret, but Alexander Payne has a way of unraveling these things so well in the movie that I think people should gradually find out on their own.
Yeah,
And-
I didn't watch a trailer ahead of time, so it was a stomach punch to me.
Oh,
when it
same
happened.
here.
Yeah.
We saw it.
I knew very little about it. I knew absolutely nothing about it besides George Clooney was in it. So when I watched it, I was really fascinated with how well this director really got just as far as the story itself, got some really great acting out of these characters as far as making you really feel for them and all their frustrations, all their pains, and just dealing with the situation the way they did in a realistic, family matter. That there wasn't ever a moment where I'm like, okay, that's just absurd, or I'm not really buying this, because even the kids in this movie do such a great job of acting. The teenager, the teenage girl,
Shailene Woodward.
Shailene Woodley.
she's one of these girls. We're watching her. I'm like, okay, this girl's gonna be like a big star, and with this, I'm sure she's gonna get some kind of acknowledgement just for her acting in it. 'Cause
She might get a Best Supporting nod this year.
easily,
I
because
wouldn't be
her and
surprised.
George Clooney, when they're acting together, it's magic.
I mean, for that matter, Clooney,
yeah.
this might be the year that he gets, at the very least, a nomination again. Because even though this role, it's certainly not even mildly hyperbolic, Clooney is playing it like a guy who's he's doing his best to hold it together for the sake of his family and everything else that's going on. And with everything that's happening, I know I'd be just like, ah!
Yeah, and that's part of the fun of watching his performance, where you're waiting for him just to kind of lose his shit, but in a way he can't.
Yeah,
He has to stay strong.
In this family, he's always been kind of the patriarch character anyway. So, yeah, but who could put up with everything that's happening, that all the secrets that even he has to hold on to decide what to do with those secrets, to decide to take the path of vengeance or do what? What would you do? I don't know. And I think that the wonder of this film is the combination between his performance, which, like I said, is it's restrained in the most perfect way, and Payne managing to yet again tell a story about incredibly complicated emotional situations and the subtleties as they change in just such a absolutely masterful fashion.
And you hit on something, the whole, what would you do? Because anybody presented with this problem goes like, well, shit, I know what I would do. But Alexander Payne walks you through it in a way where you go like, you know what? He's making me feel this where I don't know what I would do.
And one of those magic things is that he doesn't, as much as the movie try to present you in an odd fashion, the villains of it, the movie has a good way of humanizing them and not making them all out villains, to where any other movie probably would have easily done that, because it's easy to understand.
Yeah, what the closest thing to an actual straight up villain in one of Payne's films is Reese Witherspoon in Election. And even she's not a villain. I mean,
I know,
she's
she's
shown
a
to be
kid.
very human. Yeah. And that's the thing. Payne doesn't do that. He tries to tell you stories about people who are all too real. It's these stuff that you hear about from the outside. You're like, yeah, fuck that shit. You know what I'd do? And then you watch his film, and like you said, Leon, you're like, oh.
No, the movie pretty much has you bump your chest like, if that was me, I'd do this. And then the movie has a way of telling you wouldn't do a goddamn thing.
Sit there and take it.
And you actually do. You sit down with your head in your head.
Yes, Mr. Payne.
Yeah, it did seem like it was less that thing as you talked about with the Alexander Payne movies where you have a main character who's delusional, because Clooney wasn't so much that. I mean, maybe he was before, but he gets a big spoon of reality.
Yeah, he was just misinformed.
Yeah,
before.
exactly.
No, this is not one of those movies I'm saying. There's different.
No,
kinds
I know, but
of,
but like that's the thing I always say I love about my hallmark of Alexander Payne movies is that you got that main character who's saying like, well, this is what I see going on. They're even narrating it, and you looking at it, you're going like, dude, you lying to yourself. You don't realize what's happening.
No, at least that's what you can say about every movie. The protagonist, your main character, is put into a situation where they have to like face these harsh realities, and all of them have a different way that they have to confront it. But they have to confront it, and it's never a comfortable situation. I mean, it's almost uneasy to see these people have to go through it. And I would say that this is probably one of his most, as painful as this movie is, it's probably one of his most heartfelt movies, because this is a film where the character doesn't really get screwed over that much, or isn't delusional, as we were saying. This is a character who has to just pretty much step up, and the tragedy that happens in his life, as bad as it is, it helps him face up to some things that he's done wrong, or some things he's been spineless on. He's not sitting around because of this tragedy. He doesn't have to sit around and waffle on the decision about the land. Because of this tragedy, he has to like be a real father now, instead of like sitting back and being a non-present dad. And I thought it was more of a movie not about a tragedy and somebody who's got screwed over. This is more a movie about a character who, even at 50 years old, has learned to grow.
It's a movie. I mean, for me, it was a movie with a guy dealing with a situation involving his wife and his daughters. And so to me, it was like a really interesting family film in a weird sense of the word, because it's the most true sense of how your kids would react in a situation with this, especially dealing when you have a teenage daughter who her last few words with her mom weren't that great, and it's something that I'm sure some people could possibly identify with, and how these characters struggle to deal with the situation. And on top of that, also have to come to realization that there's something else they have to deal with that they don't even want to think about.
Yeah.
And the adventure that this family goes through, I found almost as fun as I did in the movie Slums of Beverly Hills. Watching that family dynamic work, I love.